Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and apparently the Commanders are bringing in linebacker Anthony Walker for a visit today. And this is not a draft prospect, this is a free agent veteran linebacker. We got to break down his entire history. Of course, we're going to use advanced stats, we're going to use grades, everything like that. I've already taken the time to watch some of his film on the ALL-22. I'm going to tell you why I'm excited about us potentially signing this guy, and why when we sign him, if we sign him, he becomes our best linebacker immediately. At the very least, the one with the highest floor. At the very least, especially with Cole Holcomb gone, he comes in with the highest floor. Got to talk about some weaknesses and strengths, of course. We're going to do an entire dive on this guy and whether Browns fans even want him back or not. I feel like this is a huge sleeper linebacker that a lot of people forgot about because he did miss the majority of last season. He only played 3 games last season, and now people act like they don't remember who he is and how he could be a huge help for the Commanders this upcoming season. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, wasn't able to live stream yesterday as in Sunday, may do a live stream later on today as in Monday, so stay tuned so we can just talk about everything that's going on, including linebacker Anthony Walker, and hopefully by then he will already be signed and we can talk about that on the live stream as well. And of course, stay tuned for everything mock draft, film session, everything free agency, anything Commanders, I got y'all, so stay tuned. Crazy content coming out. Excited. Without further ado, let's get it. Alright, so current free agent Browns linebacker Anthony Walker is visiting the Commanders today, according to Adam Schefter. And there were reports that the Cleveland Browns would like to bring him back, but the deal just doesn't seem to be close at this time. So somewhere along the line, they're missing on numbers, or somewhere in the contract, Anthony Walker is not liking what the Browns are telling him. So the Browns want him back, but there's just only a certain amount of money that they're willing to give him, and he's not willing to accept that money, so it sounds like he's probably going to leave. That doesn't automatically mean he's going to go to the Commanders, but it sounds like it's quite likely that at the very least the Browns are not able to bring him back, and that's why he's going on a world tour right now, visiting teams and things like that. And that's one really interesting thing. Before we even dive into Anthony Walker, this is like the first time we've heard an announcement that somebody's visiting the Commanders, because a lot of these players that we've signed so far, or even just talked to that we didn't end up signing, I'm pretty sure maybe not all of them, but some of them probably did visit the Commanders. So it's really interesting. It makes you wonder why this one was announced, such and such is visiting the Commanders. Maybe because it's a slower day and it's not as much going on free agency wise, but also is this just a higher profile free agent that's actually worthy of Adam Schefter to tweet it himself that this guy hasn't even been signed yet. Just the fact that he's visiting the Commanders is worthy of news. But you also have Cleveland Browns fans that want him back. A Cleveland Browns fan tweeted, "I truly believe losing Anthony Walker last year hurt us on defense more than we would like to think. It was a short sample size, but he was rated the best middle linebacker in football when he went down. I hope Barry doesn't let him walk." And that is true. Before he got hurt, he was the highest graded linebacker in the entire NFL. Very short sample size, like this Cleveland Browns guy said, of course, but he was clearly starting to play his best football before he got hurt. Of his lifetime, not just his NFL career, but of his lifetime, this was the best version of Anthony Walker that even Anthony Walker has seen. And again, like I keep bringing this up, a lot of the guys that we brought in free agency today, I guess we're just banking on all of them to stay on the trajectory of what we've seen from them most recently, because tackle guard Andrew Wiley has not been the best and most consistent tackle his entire career, but last time we saw him in that Super Bowl, he would look like one of the best tackles in the NFL just for that one game against a really good Eagles defensive line. So they're just banking on his trajectory to continue going that way. And the fact that he played his best football of his lifetime in the most recent game that we saw him, I'm assuming the Commanders believe they can get that out of him consistently moving forward, which is not very realistic, but I understand the excitement. Same thing with Cody Barton, especially, man, because he struggled the first half of last season for the Seahawks. He even got not necessarily benched, but he got way less playing time. And then he started to figure things out. He started to understand run fits better. He got better in coverage. So if you're only looking at the second half of last season and assuming that's the Cody Barton you're getting at the very least, and if anything, he may even be better than that moving forward, especially behind a defensive line this great, then yeah, Cody Barton looks like a huge steal in free agency. And then if you're doing the same thing with Anthony Walker Jr., if you're going based off the last time we saw him, the 3 games he played in before he got hurt, with him looking like one of the best linebackers in the NFL, if we end up bringing him in today for anything cheaper than what Bobby Wagner's getting, it sounds like we're getting a big steal. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be a cheap 1-year prove-it deal, maybe a little bit more than what the Browns were offering them. But either way, you can clearly see that the Commanders are banking on what have you done most recently? What have you done for me lately or for another team lately? What you've done most recently, if that's your best football and it looks like you're only getting better and better and better with time, we're just only going to assume with our coaching, because every team believes they're the smartest coaching staff in the NFL. They believe in themselves more than anybody else. So they believe they can take these group of guys and continue to get the best out of them on a longer span of time than they've ever done before in their careers. And again, it's not the safest strategy, but I can understand the excitement. If we're looking at Andrew Wiley from the Super Bowl, Cody Barton from that second half of the Seahawks season, and then Anthony Walker from the first 3 games against the Browns, it just looks like we signed a bunch of Pro Bowlers. But again, it's not realistic to think that way, but it is exciting. Now, Anthony Walker's history: he was drafted by the Colts in the 5th round, 161st overall of the 2017 draft. He was the 20th linebacker drafted in that 2017 draft. And for those of y'all who don't know, the 2017 draft is Myles Garrett, Mitchell Trubisky, Solomon Thomas, that's crazy, Corey Davis, Leonard Fournette, Jamal Adams, Christian McCaffrey, Patrick Mahomes, Marshawn Lattimore, Deshaun Watson, Hassan Reddick, Marlon Humphrey, Jonathan Allen for us. Man, OJ Howard was supposed to be way better than he was. Gerard David was supposed to be better. Malik Hooker at safety from Ohio State was supposed to be much better. Garyon Conley from Ohio State as well. That's a really interesting draft. People were really high on Jabril Peppers, but you also had Tre'Davious White, TJ Watt, David Njoku. Oh, and that's the Reuben Foster draft too. Buda Baker, Dalvin Cook. Whoo, that's a draft right there, man. Alvin Kamara, Juju Smith-Schuster, Cooper Kupp, Chris Godwin, Kareem Hunt, James Conner, Tariq. Golly, what a draft, man. George Kittle, Matt Milano, Aaron Jones. I know I'm going off topic, but man, this is a fun draft to look at. Who didn't work out and who ended up being way better than what people expected, especially based on their draft positioning. And you can argue that Anthony Walker is one of them. Again, the 20th linebacker drafted in a draft class, not the 20th linebacker in the NFL. We're talking about the 20th linebacker taken in a draft class, and he stepped up and has played way better than that. Walker, still only 27 years old, signed a 4-year, $2.7 million contract with the Indianapolis Colts and finished out that agreement in 2020. From there, Walker signed a 1-year, $3.5 million deal with the Browns in March of 2021. He re-upped again with the Browns this past season on another 1-year prove-it deal, $4.25 million. And maybe he's just offended about the fact that they keep offering him 1-year prove-it deals, and he's like, okay, I feel like I proved it the first time y'all gave me another 1 year, and then I started to prove it and I got hurt. And at this point, if y'all don't believe in me long term, I prefer to take a 1-year prove-it deal with somebody else that has shown that when people sign 1-year prove-it deals, they end up signing them to longer term contracts if they deserve it. And the Commanders at the very least have shown that. Now, that free agency article where we had the grades for different things was terrible, but one thing you can't say about the Commanders is that when guys earn it, we don't pay them. We are definitely paying guys, even like the bigger guys that we drafted, like Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Terry McLaurin. Guys that deserve money are usually getting it from us. And I wouldn't be surprised if, ignoring the reason I brought up those grades and stuff with all the Dan Snyder stuff, facilities and hot tubs, all of that stuff, is because players may be willing to ignore that stuff, especially knowing that a new owner may come in and change all of that, fix all of that. But also, if I'm getting the money that I want, or at least I can assume that I will get all of the money that I want, the facilities and stuff are a little bit minor in comparison. I don't know about y'all, but I prefer to deal with the worst facilities and getting paid way more money than the opposite. In 2022, Walker appeared in 3 games for the Browns and had 13 tackles, including 4 tackles for loss and 2 passes defended in that span. And just overall so far in his career since being drafted in 2017, he has played 73 games, 63 starts for the Indianapolis Colts in Cleveland, and he has 4.5 career sacks, 25 tackles for loss, 7 quarterback hits, 15 passes defense, and 3 interceptions. I'm telling y'all, this is a coverage guy. We're going to get to that soon. In 16 games with the Browns, he only played 13 games with them in 2021 and played 3 games with them, of course, in 2022 because, again, he got hurt for the remainder of the season. In those 16 games with the Browns, over the course of 2 seasons, he had 119 total tackles, 10.9% missed, 44 run stops, 0 TDs allowed in coverage. That's huge, man. If anything, I know we already signed Cody Barton and we lost Cole Holcomb, who wasn't much of a coverage guy anyway. And then we have Jamin Davis, who has the potential to be a coverage guy. But if you could bring in a certified coverage guy and not just like a potential coverage guy like Cody Barton and Jamin Davis, a guy with some floor in coverage, I think that would be a huge help. Our linebacker group automatically improves in coverage if you have Anthony Walker, Cody Barton, and Jamin Davis as your top 3, and then Khlaeke Hudson, based off of what we saw from him in that Cowboys game, following the same theme. Even though he isn't an outside free agent, that same theme, if he's gonna be just as good, if not better, moving forward from the last time we saw him, that one game against the Cowboys, we can expect great things out of Khlaeke Hudson as well. And maybe they feel like he's finally starting to learn his stride, get comfortable, get confident. A big part of sports is being confident, man. It doesn't matter how much talent you have until you feel like you know what you're doing and you feel like you can predict stuff and be more proactive rather than reactive, especially at the linebacker position. That's when you start to really hit your stride and become a really good player. That confidence, and it looks like Khlaeke Hudson finally found his confidence against the Cowboys, and I'm pretty sure he's going to continue to take that forward. I mean, when you start to think like, man, this really isn't that hard, this really isn't that complicated, that allows your body to do things way quicker, smoother, and more effectively. And I think Khlaeke Hudson may be hitting that. I feel like, again, that's just the thought process behind a lot of these signings that the Commanders have made this entire offseason, even outside of Anthony Walker potentially. And like somebody else said, Walker Jr. was playing his best football before suffering a torn quad tendon in week 3. In 2021, he put together 113 tackles, only playing in 13 games for the Browns. That's crazy. 13 games, 113 tackles is ridiculous production. 113 tackles in a full season is still pretty good. His 85.9 coverage grade over the past 2 seasons ranks 3rd most among all off-ball linebackers. Again, he only played 3 games in 2022, 13 games in 2021, but over the course of those 2 seasons, grade-wise, he is the 3rd best coverage linebacker in the NFL. But of course, that injury, we got to take that into account. That's one of his negatives, that's one of his weaknesses, because again, he only played 13 games for the Browns in 2021, and then in 2022, Adam Schefter tweeted September 23rd, linebacker Anthony Walker revealed that he tore his quad tendon and now will require season-ending surgery, and he had an estimated 5 to 7 month recovery. Like, that was a serious injury. That was not a slight injury. But now at the same time, from what I've heard from reports and rumors, is that he's basically back to his old self. We shouldn't have to worry about this quad tendon. He's fully healed. So we shouldn't expect him to basically lose a step, which I'm very happy about if we end up bringing him in. Honestly, if you want one game to watch, if I had to give you one game to watch Anthony Walker, it would be him for the Browns versus the New York Jets. September 18th, 2022, before he tore his pec, he led all defensive players with 2 pass deflections. He had 2 great coverage tackles. And through the first 2 weeks of NFL football, through the regular season, in the 2022 season, he had a Pro Football Focus grade of 90.8 overall and had a top 5 coverage linebacker grade at that point as well. So again, it was a small sample size. It was just the season starting out. But Anthony Walker was playing the best football he ever played in his life. The most recent full game that he played was arguably the best game he's played in his career. But it's not even like it was a fluke, because week 1 he looked great, and then he started to look pretty good in the beginning of the week 3 game, but then he ended up getting hurt and we didn't see him for the rest of the season. But if I had to tell you one game to watch, is go watch that Cleveland Browns versus New York Jets game. He's everywhere, especially in coverage. Now, RAS wise, not very impressive, but one thing I'm gonna point out though, if I had to pick 2 top traits for a linebacker, it's intelligence and instincts, IQ, awareness, all of that stuff, being proactive rather than reactive. So all of the mental stuff, and then also change of direction skills and agility and all of that type of stuff. Speed, we can work around that. Even though his 4.65 at 238 pounds is not bad. That's actually pretty straight. Explosion, we can work around that. Because if you're smart enough, you make up for a lot of those things. Now, there's really no real way to make up for change of direction. I mean, maybe if you could tell the future even a little bit better than humanly possible, maybe. But speed, you don't need as much if you already diagnosed the play before it happens. You're already running past that offensive lineman that's trying to block you on the run game. Or if you already know exactly what route a tight end, a running back, a wide receiver is running, you already know where you belong in zone coverage, man coverage, whatever. Your speed doesn't necessarily matter that much because you're there early anyway. Take Sean Lee as a perfect example for the Cowboys. Not athletic at all. Not explosive, not fast, but he was always in the right place at the right time, always making plays. Anthony Walker comes potentially with that. I'm not saying he's Sean Lee yet, but he comes with some of that, again, based off of what we've seen most recently. I mean, he just started to finally figure everything out. It was like he was in the Matrix those first two and a little bit of a third game for the Browns before he got hurt. And then you also add in a little bit more agility and change of direction skills. I mean, he had a 1.57-10 split, a 2.67-20 split. Those are both really good and near elite, especially the 10 split. And then his bench press wasn't too bad with 23 at 238 pounds. That's not bad. So basically, think potentially like a Sean Lee type of guy. Hopefully that's what we can hope for. I don't think people understand how annoying Sean Lee was for us as Commanders fans, Redskins, Washington football team fans when he was playing for the Cowboys. I feel like I'm more athletic than him, but it didn't matter because he was so smart, and I'm just really excited. And also, remember when Jacoby Brissett walked off for his final game starting for the Browns before Deshaun Watson was allowed to play again? After Jacoby Brissett won that final game, Anthony Walker Jr. was the one that went all the way out of his way to go and greet him, to say what's up and congratulate him like, man, you really did us some big favors. Remember, by then, Anthony Walker was hurt for a while. Anthony Walker again got hurt by week 3. Deshaun Watson became the starter and took over like way late into the season, like the last handful of games. And Anthony Walker went out of his way to find Jacoby Brissett on the field while Jacoby Brissett was surrounded by reporters and cameras and was like, man, thank you for what you did because you stepped up big time. So I think that's a really interesting connection that they could both end up playing together again for the Commanders. I mean, it's first of all, just going back even further, they both played together for the Colts, they both played together for the Browns, and they may both end up playing together for the Commanders. And you can clearly tell that Anthony Walker not only likes, but highly respects Jacoby Brissett by the way that he specifically was like, man, I got to shake this man's hand for potentially saving our season and carrying our season until Deshaun Watson came back. And then when Deshaun Watson came back, he didn't play very well at all. Didn't even play as well as Jacoby Brissett did. But I'm not expecting Deshaun Watson to stay down for long. Maybe it's because he's from the Atlanta metro area, but I still believe Deshaun Watson will end up getting back to his old self at some point. But in that last season, Jacoby Brissett was definitely better than Deshaun Watson. I'm not saying Deshaun Watson is always going to be worse than Jacoby Brissett, but 2022 only, Jacoby Brissett got it. But getting back to Anthony Walker, one thing I can for sure say, and say with confidence, we signed Anthony Walker. He's the best linebacker we have on roster right now. Now that's a mix of great and bad, because of course when you upgrade any position in football, especially on a potentially cheap deal like I think you end up getting with us, but I would honestly go ahead and sign him to a very cheap 2-3 year deal so the cap hit may be a little less, because I believe in his talent that much and we would save money. But if you improve in any way, that's a good thing. But at the same time, with a guy that does come with the injury history that he has and a relatively small sample size of how great he's been, the fact that I would know with that much certainty that he would be our best linebacker the day that we signed him, already better than Jamin Davis and Cody Barton, does also say a little bit about those guys as well. Now, I believe in Jamin Davis's talent. I like Cody Barton's potential, but I don't necessarily truly believe in it yet. But Anthony Walker comes in, I'm confident he's our best linebacker. And again, that says quite a bit about him and how good he is, but that also says a little bit about how uncertain I'm going to say our linebacker group is. I'm not going to say bad, but let's just say uncertain and mysterious. That's the most optimistic way I could put it right now. But also at the end of the day, you can tell that the Commanders don't prioritize linebacker that much. They prioritize having the best defensive line in football and arguably the deepest as well. And then making sure your secondary is not only very athletic, but very versatile. A lot of positional flex guys that can play multiple positions. And not only does that help as far as playing those positions, but also knowing them. If Kendall Fuller is an outside corner, he already knows what the slot corner currently on the field is thinking, so he can help him out in any way. He already knows what the safety is thinking, so he can adjust what he's doing to better help that guy. And these guys know how to communicate with each other better because of that versatility as well. And also they're starting to become a more consistent secondary because of that communication. So the secondary, with everybody healthy, of course, mostly looking at Benjamin St-Juste, is a very solid secondary, even though I would still go Christian Gonzalez in the first round to just make it even better. And then the defensive line is dominant. So the linebacker group, if you had to pick one position group out of the entire team, offense and defense, this would be the one that you can more so go with cheaper, athletic, fast, explosive guys that, you know, we'll figure it out through the season. We could try to hide their weaknesses. If we had to pick one position group on the team to not make perfect, to not make elite, we can work around that linebacker group. And I feel like the strategy that they're going with kind of does make sense. Of course, I wanted Tremaine Edmunds. Of course, I would like Bobby Wagner, but he's already going to be too expensive as well. But getting Anthony Walker and adding them to what we already have in Cody Barton, Jamin Davis, and potentially Khlaeke Hudson is honestly really good circumstantially. Also, whatever it takes to move David Mayo further and further down the depth chart, I'm excited about that alone. It makes it way less likely that we end up having to sign a Jon Bostic at some point in the middle of the season. Whatever it takes to do that, even if they aren't as good as I believe Anthony Walker is and will be, I'll take that at the very least. And again, Ron Rivera, I keep saying it, videos, live streams over and over again. Rivera has said that they want to do everything that they can in free agency to make it so that by the time we get to the draft, we're doing what we want to do and not what we need to do. This linebacker class in this upcoming draft isn't that great, especially not good enough to be taking guys in the first and second round, in my opinion. I way more prefer to wait till the third round and try to get Deion Henley there. And the Commanders have literally shown interest in him and everything, interviewed him at the combine, all of that. But it's clear that, okay, even though we care about the linebacker position the least, which is interesting because our head coach and our defensive coordinator are ex-linebackers, but they feel like we can work around that with the dominant defensive line and a great, consistent, and athletic secondary, versatile secondary. They feel like as long as we go into the draft decent at linebacker with a lot of potential around, a lot of ceiling, maybe not a lot of floor, but a lot of ceiling, we're not going to overreact and draft a linebacker way sooner than we should in this upcoming draft, just because we feel like we really need one. Now we want one. We want more linebackers. I still do, even after we sign Anthony Walker, want to still give Deion Henley in the third round a chance. I would love to. But at least this doesn't make us draft Henry To'oTo'o in the second round or sooner or something like that, because we're panicking and we're like, man, we got to find some linebacker to fill a spot. So I love this strategy. And again, Anthony Walker has a lot of upside, man. And again, just imagine Anthony Walker, go look at that Jets Browns game, and then just imagine if that's our defensive line in front of him, keeping him clean, keeping Cody Barton clean from what you watch in those Seahawks highlights, keeping Jamin Davis clean. I mean, we've already seen how that helps him. Just imagine Jamin Davis behind a bad defensive line. That could get scary. I love Jamin Davis and his talent, but behind a bad defensive line, Jamin Davis would not be kept clean, and he would struggle way more than he already does. Now, of course, I felt like Tranquill, who ended up signing with the Chiefs, I believe, was a better fit because Cody Barton is already this kind of smaller, athletic sideline to sideline coverage guy. Jamin Davis is sort of similar as well. And then Anthony Walker is not coming in as a big guy either. Now, I believe he would immediately be our starting Mike linebacker. And then Jamin Davis and Cody Barton are fighting for who's going to get the most will linebacker snaps, even though we're probably only going to have two linebackers on the field the vast majority of the time anyway. So that's why having this much depth only helps, because usually it's only going to be two of them in the field a lot anyway. And I feel like if anything, if we have Anthony Walker and Jamin Davis and Cody Barton as our three, Cody Barton will be the one that plays the least, and Khlaeke Hudson may even come in at times in obvious passing situations, with him being an ex-safety. But I felt like Tranquill would have been that Sam linebacker that we need to change Shaka Toney into. I still don't understand why the Commanders haven't unlocked that, but if they're not going to make Shaka Toney do it, Tranquill would have been a nice fit, played a role that we don't necessarily have on the team right now, again, as a Sam linebacker. I love Anthony Walker, and I feel like ultimately Anthony Walker Walker could end up being the better linebacker, period. But if we're trying to fill in a role that we don't have really anywhere on this team at all at this point, Sam linebacker, Tranquill was a better fit because we already have a lot of will linebackers laying around. We already have a bunch of those, and we already have some potential middle linebackers. We don't have any Sams. But if ignoring fit, Anthony Walker, I do feel like is potentially the better linebacker than even Tranquill if we're believing in his talent and believing in what we saw most recently and ignoring injuries. You get Anthony Walker today, I'm way more comfortable with this linebacker group. And just overall depth wise, I mean, right now the Commanders brought back all 4 of the depth linebackers that we have on 1-year deals this offseason. David Mayo, Nathan Gary, Milo Eifler, Khlaeke Hudson, all of those guys were signed to 1-year deals. All of these depth guys. And Jon Bostic, thank goodness, the only free agent Commander linebacker from last year that we didn't bring back. I hope we don't end up bringing him back at any point for any reason. And it's been reported, just to let y'all know, that we were very interested in Tranquill and that we talked to him and everything, but he ended up choosing the Chiefs over us. Hopefully Anthony Walker chooses us over every other team. But yeah, man, just based on our depth and how much we don't even necessarily believe in our depth, we signed everybody outside of Jamin Davis and Cody Barton as of right now. All of the other linebackers just recently signed cheap 1-year deals. And Anthony Walker may end up signing the same thing as well. You can tell that we're not prioritizing the position, so that should make you feel a little bit more comfortable about how important it is for us to have a dominant all-pro level linebacker. It's not that serious. I would love to have one. It would be a luxury, but it's not a necessity for us to have a top 5 defense. But if you can bring in Anthony Walker, yes, please. This guy is solid against the run, only getting better. Great in coverage, like I already said, arguably one of the best off-ball linebackers in coverage in the NFL, especially based off what we've seen most recently. But even before those last 2 games, before he got hurt in that 3rd game, even before that, based on what we saw from the Colts, the Browns, he's very productive. He's solid in coverage at the very least, with a high ceiling to only get better. I'm very excited about this guy. I really hope we bring him in. Honestly, if he's able to stay healthy, and if he is who I think he is, he may honestly be our most impactful signing that we've made this offseason. Not re-signing, because of course Daron Payne is more important to this team than potentially an Anthony Walker. But as far as a position that's first of all lacking, I mean, I know we're not prioritizing linebacker, but I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say that our linebacker group is good, not even necessarily solid, before we would sign an Anthony Walker. It's just not that big of a necessity to fill, but Anthony Walker would make a big difference and improvement for this team. I feel like Andrew Wiley may be able to do that, starting the right tackle for us as well. But if I had to bet money, if we had to do like a net positive and improvement for any player that we signed in free agency so far, who knows if we go out there and sign some huge name guy, maybe like a tight end or something. But if you're saying between Nick Gates, Andrew Wiley, Anthony Walker, Cody Barton, and anybody else that we've signed most recently, again, not including the re-signings like Daron Payne and those guys, if we're talking about based on who they're replacing from last year and how well they may play this upcoming season, I feel like the biggest jump, the biggest gap, the biggest leap in improvement may be potentially Anthony Walker at linebacker, even more so than Andrew Wiley at right tackle, taking the place of the rotation of Samuel Cosme and Cornelius Lucas. I believe in his talent that much, so I would be very happy about this linebacker group. Again, it doesn't stop me from wanting Deion Henley in the 3rd round, but I can sleep well at night knowing that this defense should be top 5 in the NFL, especially with a guy like that in the middle linebacker spot. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section, let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. As always, man, I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors whose name you see scrolling on the screen right now. Please let me know how you feel about Anthony Walker potentially signing with the Commanders. Do you think it's as big of a steal as I do, or are you very low on him? Do you feel like the linebacker position needs to be upgraded as much as a lot of people do? Do you feel like the Commanders are not prioritizing it and that's a good thing or a bad thing? And of course, man, I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.